Hey there, Dukes of Fluke. Today we're diving into a fishy tale that might just have you seeing double. Like the star of our show, the southern flounder, whose eyes have a peculiar way of ending up on the same side of its head. This flatfish is at the center of a controversy that's more than a bit, well, fishy. Why should you care about this quirky fluke? Honestly, this story has more twists and turns than a flounder's view of the world. It's a saga of overfishing, economic impact, and a race against time to save a species from swimming into oblivion. So grab your fishing rods and let's cast into this ocean of controversy. First, let's meet our star, the southern flounder, or as scientists like to call it, Paralichthes lethostigma, the death spot fish. This flat, tasty fish has been a staple of North Carolina's commercial and recreational fishing industries for over a century. The first recorded landings date back to 1889. Talk about a long-running seafood special. What makes these fish so special? For starters, they're masters of disguise. Southern flounder are born looking like normal fish, but as they grow, one eye migrates to join the other on the top side of their body. This allows them to lie flat on the ocean floor, blending in with their surroundings like a fishy chameleon. It's nature's way of saying,
can't see me.
Unfortunately for them, fishermen have gotten pretty good at proving that statement wrong. These crafty flatfish are found in the Atlantic Ocean from North Carolina all the way down to northern Mexico. But here's the kicker. North Carolina is the big cheese when it comes to southern flounder fishing. We're talking about 99% of the commercial southern flounder landings on the Atlantic coast. That's right, the Tar Heel State is basically the flounder capital of the East Coast. Let's talk about the flounder family in North Carolina waters. There are actually three common species: the southern flounder, the summer flounder, and the Gulf flounder. While we're going to focus a lot on the southern flounder, it's important to understand that these are indeed distinct species, each with their unique characteristics. Southern flounder, Paralichthes lethostigma, are recognized by their lack of distinctive spots, which helps them blend in seamlessly with the sandy or muddy bottoms. Summer flounder, Paralichthes dentatus, are identified by their 5 ocellated eye-like spots that form a pattern similar to a 5-sided die. Gulf flounder, Paralichthes albugata, are notable for their 3 prominent spots that form a triangular pattern. Here's the catch, and it's not the good kind. According to a 2019 coast-wide stock assessment, southern flounder are overfished, and overfishing is still occurring. The spawning stock biomass, or the number of mature females capable of reproducing, has dropped to dangerously low levels. In 2017, it was estimated at just 1,031 metric tons, or about 2.3 million pounds. Scientists say we need at least 3,900 metric tons, or about 8.6 million pounds, for a sustainable population. That's a problem. The spawning stock biomass is a critical measure of a fish population's health. It indicates how many adult fish are out there reproducing. A healthy spawning stock means more baby flounders and ultimately more flounders in general. But when those numbers drop, it spells trouble not just for the fish, but also for everyone who relies on them, from commercial fishermen to recreational anglers. It gets worse. The current fishing mortality rate is 0.91, which is nearly double the sustainable threshold of 0.53. This means we're catching flounder faster than they can reproduce. And the probability that the spawning stock biomass in 2017 was below the threshold value? A whopping 100%. That means there's no doubt we're in troubled waters here. You might be thinking, just tell people to stop fishing so much. Problem solved, right? Well, in part, that's sort of what's happened here in North Carolina, at least for recreational anglers, which is a big part of the problem. With current restrictions, North Carolina doesn't allow the keeping of any flounder species by recreational fishermen. Would it make a difference if we could educate fishermen on how to differentiate between the species? Would identifying and allowing a harvest of certain flounders, like the summer or the Gulf species, ease the pressure on the southern flounder populations? Who knows? Like that delicious tasting flatfish, that doesn't seem to be on the table right now for recreational fishermen. Here's why. The southern flounder fishery isn't just a hobby. It's a big business in North Carolina, and the numbers might surprise you. From 2008 to 2017, the commercial southern flounder fishery had an average annual economic impact of $18.2 million in sales, and we're supporting about 1,300 jobs and adding almost $15 million in value to the state's economy. But the recreational fishery? It's an even bigger fish in this economic pond, generating an average annual economic impact of about $243 million and supporting about 2,100 jobs. That's right, recreational fishing is the big fish here. And it's not just about the thrill of the catch, it's a significant economic driver. Southern flounder has been the most targeted species by recreational anglers in North Carolina for 20 of the last 30 years. From 2008 to 2017, an average of 1.7 million recreational trips were taken annually targeting the southern flounder. Imagine all those anglers from all corners of the country flocking to North Carolina's waters. It's like a massive waterborne tailgate party, with each cast potentially bringing in not just a fish, but a slice of economic prosperity. The average recreational angler targeting southern flounder, they're typically male and over 47 years old. But don't let that fool you. Anglers of all ages and backgrounds are part of this tradition, each contributing to a pastime that spans generations. While recreational fishing is bringing in the big bucks, it's actually catching fewer fish than the commercial sector. In 2017, the recreational sector accounted for only 28% of the total southern flounder removals. The recreational fishery isn't just about hook and line. There's a recreational commercial gear license, which allows recreational fishers to use limited amounts of commercial gear. From 2002 to 2008, RCGL holders primarily used large mesh gill nets to harvest southern flounder. However, the number of RCGL holders has been dropping from about 6,000 in the year 2000 to about 1,800 in the year 2017. This decline highlights a shift in how people fish and the pressures facing the recreational sector. Despite their smaller share of the total catch, recreational anglers are often at the forefront of conservation efforts, advocating for sustainable practices to ensure that future generations can enjoy the same fishing opportunities. Let's talk about the commercial operations. From 2008 to 2017, an average of 1,149 commercial fishermen reported southern flounder landings each year. These aren't big corporations. These are individual fishermen and small family operations. The average American fisherman in the southern flounder fishery, they're not exactly rolling in the dough. Most are middle-aged males with more than 50% of their income coming from commercial fishing. The commercial fishery primarily uses three methods: gill nets, pound nets, and gigs. From 2008 to 2017, gill nets accounted for an average of 53% of commercial southern flounder landings, pound nets for 38%, and gigs for about 7%. Each of these methods has its own unique challenges and impacts on the flounder population. But here's the real elephant in the room: inshore trawling. Inshore trawling, particularly in estuarine environments where juvenile southern flounder develop, has a significant impact on the population. These trawlers drag large nets across the seabed, catching everything in their path, including juvenile flounder. The bycatch, or the unintended catch in these operations, is high, and many of the juvenile fish that are caught do not survive. Inshore trawling has been a contentious issue for years, with environmental groups, recreational anglers, and even some commercial fishermen calling for stricter regulations or even a ban on the practice in certain areas. The problem is these trawling operations often target shrimp, but the flounder bycatch can be substantial, impacting the overall population recovery efforts. Imagine this: you're trying to grow a garden, but every time you plant seeds, a giant rake comes through and takes out half of them. That's what inshore trawling does to juvenile flounders. It's a major hurdle for recovery efforts, and finding a balance between economic activity and conservation is key. So we've got a situation where recreational fishing is bringing in more money, but commercial fishing is catching more fish and supporting traditional livelihoods. It's like trying to balance a scale with apples on one side and oranges on the other. The North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission tries to keep it all balanced. In 2019, the Commission approved Amendment 2 to the Southern Flounder Fishery Management Plan, calling for a 72% reduction in the total removals of southern flounder. The Commission had to decide how to split this reduction between commercial and recreational fisheries. Historically, based on 2017 data, they proposed a gradual shift in allocation: 70% commercial, 30% recreational for the years 2020 2023 and 2024, with 60% commercial and 40% recreational for the year 2025, and 50% commercial and 50% recreational starting in the year 2026. This shift is clearly significant. For the commercial industry, it means adapting to lower catch limits, which can be a tough pill to swallow for those whose livelihoods depend on the sea. For recreational fishers, it's about embracing more responsibility and conservation efforts. The challenge is to find a solution that works for everyone, ensuring that the flounder population can thrive. The Commission has also been implementing strict seasonal closures. For the recreational fishery in 2024, that meant a complete ban of flounder fishing until recent changes. And for the commercial folks, they're also looking at more restrictions. The Commission is considering setting trip limits, meaning fishermen can go fishing, but they can't catch too much. These measures are intended to give flounder populations a chance to recover during crucial spawning times. It's like hitting pause on the fishing frenzy to allow the ecosystem to breathe and rejuvenate. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what about the fish? Don't they have rights too? Unfortunately, fish can't hire lawyers, but they do have science on their side. According to projections, even with these drastic measures, it would take until 2028 at the earliest to rebuild the southern flounder population to sustainable levels. Southern flounder don't respect state lines. They're found all along the South Atlantic coast. This is why fishery management requires cooperation across state lines, balancing economic interests with environmental concerns. Collaboration is key here. Each state along the coast plays a role in flounder management, and finding common ground can be as challenging as keeping a flounder on the line. But it's necessary if we want to see these fish continue to swim in our waters for years to come. The Commission is looking at potentially phasing out large mesh gill nets, a major commercial fishing method. They also seem to like bag limits for recreational fishers with one fish per person per day. And while 15 to 16 inches is the traditional minimum size in some states, North Carolina could consider making flounder a slotted species with a minimum and maximum length to take a fish and put it on your plate, again for recreational fishermen. In fact, it could be a very small slot with a minimum length of 18 inches and a maximum of 22 inches, which could protect both breeding stock and juvenile flatties. Sorry y'all, that means we're not taking doormats home anymore. Again, that's not really something the folks in Raleigh are discussing right now, but maybe they should be. These changes might sound drastic, but they could be part of a broader strategy to help ensure the long-term survival of the species we all love. The theory is, by cutting back now, we're investing in a future where southern flounder can thrive without constant threat of overfishing. Another idea is the creation of inlet corridors, protected areas around inlets where southern flounder migrate to spawn. But the data doesn't really support this idea. It turns out flounder don't congregate in inlets as much as we thought. It's a classic case of theory versus reality. While protecting these areas sounds really good on paper, the real-life movements of flounder are much more complex than anticipated. Understanding these patterns is crucial for creating effective conservation strategies. And let's not forget about climate change. As water temperatures rise, it's affecting the sex ratios of southern flounder. Warmer waters tend to produce more males. Since female flounder grow larger and are the primary target of the fishery, fewer females could mean even more pressure on the population. Climate change is the wild card in this equation. It's altering habitats and changing the rules of the game for many marine species, including flounder. Adaptation and resilience are the names of the game, and our response to these changes will determine the future of our fisheries. The Commission is adopting an adaptive management framework. They'll set some goals, try some strategies, and if they don't work, they'll try something else. This flexible approach hopefully will allow for adjustments as new data and challenges arise. So why does this matter? First, if you're a fan of flounder on your plate, whether you catch it yourself or order it at a restaurant, these regulations will affect you. Second, this is a case study on how we manage our natural resources in North Carolina, which traditionally falls in the not so much category. And finally, it's a reminder that everything in nature is connected. So there you have it, Dukes of Flute, a complex problem with no easy solutions, competing interests, and high stakes for both the economy and the environment. It's like a legal textbook come to life, but with more scales and fins. So what do you think? Should the commercial industry bear the brunt of the reductions, since they take the lion's share of the catch and bring substantially less income in the state than the recreational fishermen? Or should the pain be spread more evenly? And what about those sneaky southern flounder? Do they need fish passports to cross state lines? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, the next time you're enjoying a flounder fillet, take a moment to appreciate the complex legal and environmental ballet that brought it to your plate. Who knew fish could be so controversial? Until next time, keep your lines tight and your arguments sharp.